It's a very good evening to you tuned into UBC TV. We thank you so much for following our programs. And here we are with another one. Like I always say, we look for those icons, people that have information that we need for the good of our families, our communities, and this beautiful country, Uganda. My name is Michael Jordan Lukomwa. Join me to welcome my guest tonight. Who is the guest? Somebody described her as the icon of women empowerment in Uganda. You should start guessing the person. She is a medical doctor by profession, and she has treated bodies in this country. Beyond that, she is a leader. She has led women groups. She led a constituency. She ended up in parliament, and she was #2 of this country. I'm talking about the post of vice president. Every Ugandan now knows that that is Her Excellency, retired Vice President Dr. Specioza Wandera Kazibwe. Mama, you're most welcome to this show.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Ugandans. I'm glad our Creator has kept us alive up to this time. And for me personally, to be able to be part of and witness many things in my life for the last almost 66 years now.
Wow.
So I say God is good all the time.
In that very line, how are you? How are you living? How is life generally?
I'm okay. I'm good, like the young people say.
Yes.
I am busy. I'm doing things I enjoy. And I'm still making a contribution to Uganda, East Africa, and Africa.
Doctor, as we start, all of us are working. What does it mean to wake up one day and you have retired from the day-to-day runnings and things like that? What does it mean and how does it feel like?
See, my problem with that very good analysis of retirement is that I have never experienced retirement.
Really?
No.
That's what we think.
I'm still in front of cameras. I'm still addressing audiences. And I'm really happy that even now, because the mode of meetings and everything has changed because of COVID, I'm still on Zoom every day, locally and internationally.
As a mandate?
Well,
or when
you see, mandates...
humbly come and request?
No, I give myself a mandate of educating the people.
Okay.
As a former leader, I also have a mandate to give advice, not only here in Uganda, but also internationally.
As a senior, you have no alternative to that?
I have no alternative. Okay. So you are actually part of boards. You are on advisory groups. And my life has just gone on, and I don't intend to retire.
Okay.
I'm not retired. I will retire when my Creator says retire.
God forbid.
I'm before my garden, I'm before my animals, I'm before my grandchildren, I'm running up and down my compound. I'm living a full life. And that's why I tell young people, strive and focus on growing older. That is when life is most interesting and exciting.
Now, Doctor, you have served this country. Whoever questions that, he is just a visitor to Uganda. When do you get the idea of joining service to serve Uganda in different capacities, besides your profession?
You know, in our time, we didn't have many women in leadership that we knew. We didn't. And where I grew up, far from Kampala, the nearest I got was Mount St. Mary's, Namagunga.
Okay.
And when those days we had classes called civics, where they would make lists of ministers, make lists of members of parliament, you know your local leaders, you know the traditional leaders.
The title was Mr. throughout.
Mr. Then you would see some, you know. Then later on, when I grew up to become more politically aware, I get to Makerere, and then I see somebody I know, the Vitamazire, She's the one who I got to know when she was a Minister for Education. Otherwise, the inspiration to lead and to stand out came from the woman who gave birth to me. She was my first politician. So when I went further in my education, I became a class monitor, I became a school counselor, I went to Makerere, became a chairperson of Mary Stewart Hall, but my inspiration and encouragement to serve was always from my mother.
Actually, I've gotten two inspirations that took you into leadership. That great lady that gave birth to you.
Yes.
But again, this is how I understood the first statement you gave me. Absence of a Mrs. in all the calendars that came out of leaders.
Precisely.
As the people of today look at names like yours and other ladies, for your generation, it was the absence that inspired you.
The absence, it inspired me. And then whatever was happening gave me the courage to say yes. Incidentally, I never in my life, when I look back at how I joined leadership, ever got up and said, I want to be class monitor or I want to be chairperson. Never. It's the other people who always said, Specioza, we want you to be our monitor.
Okay.
Specioza, we want you to be our leader.
Why do you think that was the case?
I think here again I go back to my mother. I'm somebody who does not want to be squeezed into a corner. Also because I'm not the typical girl next door. I didn't grow up with girls. The only girl I grew up with was my mother. My mother had 9 children, and I was her only daughter.
Wow.
So I was surrounded by men. So men have never intimidated me. Because I grew up doing what the men do.
Okay.
You know, wrestling, playing football, playing mweso. So, and my mother encouraged me. So, you know, that's how it has been in my life. I'm not easily intimidated. Yes.
Doctor, do you think the fight to empower our mothers has really yielded the targeted results in Uganda?
I believe so. Sometimes we look at the number of women in politics, but we don't look at the proportions of women who
in
have
other sectors.
Moved from primary to secondary, and then from secondary, and how they've widened the scope of their engagement in the economy. In my time when my mother was in school, if you wanted to serve Uganda, you were either a primary school teacher or a nurse, or you do catering.
That is all that was available.
That was what was available. The rest was housewife. That was the job. But you get there, you still have to juggle between the two. Now, you see women in every field.
I had an interview with a professor who sounded unhappy in a way. He said, this thing of affirmative action is not giving us the real representation like we expected. Doctor, what is your view?
In this era, we think that the role of a woman in parliament is to focus on women dying in labor. That is a sex issue.
Okay.
It's not a gender issue.
Doctor, this professor's view was that at a certain point, politics swallowed and it took over affirmative action, and that's where the intention, just as you have expressed it, died.
It didn't die. To me, what would be useful in negating affirmative action is like for me now at my age, that I need affirmative action, that I go to parliament and I stand on affirmative seat. What woman role am I playing? Am I going to get pregnant? No. I mean, really, it doesn't make sense at all for an off layer, if I may call myself that,
Okay.
to really go and stand on affirmative action. A woman who has reached 50 or even 40 and above, you should have had all the children. You should have navigated, and you should move That's why for me, I stood affirmative action only once.
Okay.
And I went out.
Doctor, I want to understand you well.
Yes.
Because if I understood you well, then I will tell you we have a problem. According to what you're saying, the designation of affirmative action was to help women grow, then stand at a certain point in time.
Yes.
We have people that have served in the same positions for over 25 years on the ticket of affirmative action. And there are many. And we having a problem then. Are they not blocking way for other young ladies to come in?
It was a training ground, just like for the youth. Training ground. Training ground.
Okay.
At least be there for 2 terms. It's a training ground. Because if you repeat the class over and over again, either you are blocking that chair for another student who should sit there, or you will never learn.
In some universities, when you get to retake more than twice, they discontinue
They
you.
discontinue you. Yes.
So this is how we should look at these women. They are, they are retaking a paper.
They are retaking a paper too many times.
Now, how did it feel the day you read it that Dr. Specioza Wandera Kazibwe has been appointed, you have been appointed Vice President, #2 of the Pearl of Africa?
When Ugandans got to know, I had already been asked by the president. Ugandans got to know in November, but he had asked me in August the same year.
Okay.
To help him manage the country. And I was shocked. What excitement is there? For me, I'm a surgeon. I didn't do political science. I didn't do economics. I had earlier asked him when he appointed me full cabinet minister to go and study strategic management and institution building. And he gave me a whole year, and I got my postgraduate diploma. And I said, I'm just comfortable being a woman in this ministry. Please. Moreover, I want to go back to my profession because I had been identified to go and do plastic surgery. I already had the scholarship and to start a burns and plastic surgery center in Mulago. I said, that is what I'm focused on. So I said, but you know.
So you almost turned down the opportunity.
I said,
the appointment
let me
first.
pray over it. And I said, let me pray over it. So we went on in the CA. I was NRC for Kampala district, but also member of the Constituent Assembly for Kigulu South. I had 2 constituencies. I said, and at the same time, I was also managing Honorable Apakabulo's Ministry of Tourism. At the same time, Honorable Adrico had left me his Ministry of Lands. He was on leave. At the same time, I was also the minister responsible for public service. And
all that on one head?
Yes, because at that time, deputy ministers were not sitting in cabinet, or when a minister goes away, they get another minister, they recommend. So they had all, and I said, too much, they all said, no, she's the one we want. So, give me time. So the announcement came in, I was in Brussels as Minister of Tourism, marketing tourism. After the London tourism show, yes, I went to Brussels to negotiate with Brussels Air to come back to Uganda. That's where I was. And the announcement came. What is exciting about leading?
Really?
You know, people are excited now about leadership. I don't think it's the leadership.
Were you not excited?
No, to tell you the truth.
Why?
Because I already knew the weight of what it meant. I knew what it meant.
Service.
Service.
Yes, and this is something you
Service.
told me
Yes.
you wanted right from your childhood.
I didn't tell you I wanted.
Okay.
No. People would ask you. Now the president has asked me. Those were difficult times. Very difficult times with a lot to do in this country. Very difficult times. So you see people jumping up and down when they are elected. What is it they are jumping up and down about? What have they done? So I never got excited. When I came back incognito. I got to that airport, and even my family did not know when I was coming back. Mrs. Kutesa Jennifer was with me in the delegation. So she said, let me stay with you. We came back together. It is their car which collected me from the airport, because even Foreign Affairs had been told, please, because people got excited. They wanted to line up, the women to line up on Entebbe Road. I said no. So even when I arrived, I went to Kutesa's home.
Why?
Because there were people waiting at my house. They had camped there.
Did you fear them?
No.
They were happy for you?
No. I didn't fear anything. I needed time to meet my children. So my children were collected from there. And my husband, they were brought to Kutesa's home, and we prayed.
Okay.
We prayed. I had to touch base with my family. I never imagined that when I became NRC member that I would go into government. No. So, that is, if I tell you, if you go to the archives and you see my signature, I was signing. I was heavy. My shoulders were heavy. I could feel the weight of that responsibility.
Doctor, what are the roles of the Vice President?
Luckily enough, I was in that constitution making. The Vice President.
Both in law and in practice.
Yes.
What do we have to expect of a
Now, that's where I'm starting with the Constitution.
Yes.
The Constitution, when we debated that Constitution, the Vice President, as you see, deputizes for the President. So the Vice President does everything the President does, where the President is not.
On assignment or automatically in his absence?
That is how it should be. Because even when the President is leaving the country, he signs off the responsibility and leaves it to the Vice President. Now, in the Constitution that we wrote and promulgated, before all these changes were made, the Vice President was the leader of government business in Parliament. Because the President was not going to Parliament. So all matters to do with the Parliament were under the docket of the Vice President. There was no Prime Minister. The Prime Minister was a senior minister, was the chief whip of ministers in implementation, coordinating them as they implement.
How do things change again? Because
they changed when I left. Because, yes. I don't know, I will tell you, because I was at Harvard, I don't know what was going on in cabinet and everything, but I was the leader of government business in that Parliament. Something people don't talk about. But because I had done my postgraduate diploma in strategic planning and institution building, I said, you know, you cannot just be there and there. Let us have a logical division of labor. And I asked the President to put it in writing. So to me, I had my schedule. The President has his schedule. And we would meet and compare notes. When he was out of the country, I was the commander-in-chief. All security briefs were coming to me. This I'm not is talking for the camera. It's a fact. I would sit in his office. He would say, when I'm away, you sit in the president's office.
As law or as his wish?
But what do you understand by the law? If the president is out of the country, you are the president. He has already signed by law. He signs off. So you sit there. What I refused to do as a well-brought-up girl was to sit in his chair, but I was at his desk. The security briefs are there. Cabinet is there. I moved from there to go and chair cabinet.
In that power, what kind of executions of responsibilities did you make?
What did he give me to do? The letters are there. Now in the Constitution you have, you can even go and ask for that letter. My job was to chair cabinet. I chaired the Presidential Economic Council, which made the plans for many of the things that are happening now. Some people think they are new. It envisioned the economy, the Presidential Economic Council. So the president, I brief him. If I want him to come in, I invite him to come. But in writing, I chair the Presidential Economic Council. You will represent the presidency outside the country. That's why you had me at the UN, at Chogam, at where, all over. You will mobilize the population to understand government policy in writing. So every time I chaired cabinet, I would give him, these are the outcomes. But before, I'm the one to make sure I know what's going to be discussed. So we discuss it. So what achievement do you want me to tell you? If I was chairing PEC, what do you see now? If I was chairing cabinet, what do you see?
Can a vice president sanction a penalty over a minister, for example?
Of course. You also find out. I fired the minister.
Really?
Yes.
Who was that?
I won't tell you. You know, Ugandans don't like history.
For the sake of the record.
No, I will not say. No, it
What
is.
has gone wrong?
No, you know, he fought with a policeman. He was in a bar, caused havoc somewhere in the east. And I asked him to resign. I was the president. So when I asked him to resign, he ran to the prime minister. And I said, what is he talking about? This prime minister I'm his boss. You see the gender issues.
Yes.
So when the president returned, they thought he was going to reverse that decision. So the president told them that there is a story, a king of Ankole went out and left a regent. And the regent took out somebody's eye. And when the king came back, this man came and said, you see, he took out my eye. But you see, even if I could put back your eye, he was the king. And unfortunately, I can't put back your eye.
How did you take the ground? Because such things cause enmity within and fights within the political.
If you fear enemies, don't join politics. Because it's about people's interests. You must move what is the national interest. You must have discipline. You are a minister. How do you go and fight in a bar and with a policeman, even if it wasn't the policeman? How? So there are some issues.
What was the comment of your boss about that to you?
What could he say? I had already done it.
You sacked his minister.
I sacked our minister.
Anyway, with reason. How do you look at it?
You see, I sacked our minister. And this is an issue also now, where Ugandans think that if you don't see the president, nothing gets done. In my time, things got done. Ministers had to do their work because the president was focusing on visioning for the country, strategic decisions on security and such matters. So you have to do your work. You know, you are the vice president, chair cabinet. You are the prime minister. Coordinate these ministers. Check on them. What are they doing? You are going to chair cabinet. Have you talked to the ministers? Are the policies in sync? Will the money be there? You come to cabinet and you've not read your cabinet paper. I have not read, get out. Don't waste our time.
That's what you would do to
Yes, and the business, we did business. Yes. You plan for the country. That's what you are there to do. That's why I said, really, you cannot feel excited. What does that mean? It means you have a briefcase for PEC, you have a briefcase for cabinet, you have a briefcase for mobilizing. You must sit with the head of public service and secretary to cabinet.
As vice president.
As vice president. To harmonize the work. As vice president, you are the leader of government business in parliament. You must have a forum. Yes, that's what I did. Yes. So I started a forum to coordinate parliament. Speaker. We sit every 3 months. What business is cabinet bringing to parliament? What are the issues in the judiciary? What are the issues in security? And through PEC, I know the issues in the economy. So we coordinate, because to a Ugandan, you are all government.
We are taking a very short break. On return, we are going to have a diagnosis of the politics, where we're coming from, and a little of where we are going. Don't make a mistake of going anywhere. UBC TV one-on-one. How would you describe the current way things are?
I don't know how they are.
In comparison with...
I don't know. I can only tell you how I see from my point of view.
Exactly.
From my point of view, where we have a problem is with the bureaucracy.
Where? Within the ministries?
Within the ministries, because they are the ones to get data from the centers of excellence, coordinate with the universities or researchers to get the data to now say, your manifesto said this. This is how we think it will be implemented. That's why all these cabinet decisions start with the ministries. If you have a minister who is not an engineer or say a doctor, how would they initiate health policy? And I say you don't need a minister to be a doctor or a minister to lead health or a doctor or an engineer to lead the works or an agriculturist to lead the... Yes, because also they have their own industrial blindness. And remember, you are a leader. So the key people whom we put there, I also used to chair the cabinet to look at the public service. Why is this department not working? Are they not in sync as a ministry? And that is the restructuring of government.
But the other day we saw the president dissolving cabinet.
Yes.
As we get to usher into a new government with in a few
Correct.
days. In your point of view still, how would you, what is your view of how they are operating, or they have been operating ever since? Because much as you are out of the official cabinet and all that, you're still a Ugandan and still at home. You see how things are moving. In your view, How do you see progress from where you were to where we are?
Yeah, there is progress. Because when I was there was no money. So the plans and the focus of government on the economic sector have generated the resources which have been able to really make us more or less independent. Even as we talk, COVID has showed us that without donors, we can still go on. There is money. There is.
But in terms of structure.
In terms of structure.
Your colleagues that followed you.
They split this authority in trying to reorganize government to fit in with the Constitution. Because the Constitution said the center is policy, planning, regulation. So they created regulatory authorities all over. It was the center should be, the ministry should be the regulatory authority. And they leave implementation to local governments.
I'm looking at cabinet in terms of structure. The colleagues that followed you were not leader of government business in parliament, for example. Do you think that in a way affected their performance?
No, there is always a leader of government business in parliament.
Fine, but as a vice
Which
president,
one? I don't know what they discussed with the president, but when I handed over to Dr. Bukenya, Professor Bukenya, yes, I gave him a full brief. In my time, this was the situation, and this was what I was asked to do by the president in writing. Sit with the president and evaluate where we are in time so that you can have a schedule which he believes. So I don't know what schedule he gave him. But I gave my advice. That I did. That's why I'm still advisor to the president. I give you my advice. You can take it or you don't. So I don't know what happened between them because I became vice president in '94. By the time I left in 2003, already most of the plans had been made. Indeed, even before I left, the sectoral planning for all sectors, security, economy, social, had been done. I remember chairing those meetings at Hotel Africana. Dr. Suruma and the current secretary to Treasury, Muhakanizi, were my secretariat as chairperson of PEC. So we had done the overall planning. That I can say we did.
Probably that's why there are so many questions today as to people wonder, what are the roles of a vice president? Probably because they don't have that responsibility like you had, chairing cabinet and all that. Probably,
you know what? This is where we have really thinking the president is going to think out everything. It's like, you know, a country is also like a home.
Where do you think that comes from?
I think
loading the whole work onto the president.
Every individual should know what they are capable of. For instance, if the president had said, now, for me, I will mobilize the country as you think about security. Even if he asked me, I would say, no, I know nothing about security. But having been a minister for community development, labor, that was no problem. Chairing cabinet, no, I had no problem with that. I had been chairperson of Mary Stewart Hall. I had been, I had been a chair when the guild wasn't there. I was chairing all the cabinet, the different halls chairpersons. Up to now, they call me their chairman because Amin had. So I had no problem with the chairing.
How big was the cabinet that you used to chair?
I don't remember the numbers. You know, there are things which you people ask me. When was this day? I didn't know that I had to write, and I'm not doing
This is why I'm asking, Doctor.
No, my area of research now is in mobilizing people to take charge of their health. The cabinet was in line with what the Constitution said. Not more than 22 ministers and not more than 22 deputies.
Those are 48, 44 actually.
We didn't have more than 50 ministers, as I remember.
Okay. There is a complaint today of, especially within the opposition and the public, people think we have a big cabinet. We have a big parliament. Actually, the complaints are so much directed to parliament. We expect over 520 something this incoming parliament. What is your view as a Ugandan?
You see, when we were writing the Constitution, we recognized the fact that because the country was shattered, the expectations of the population were going to be focused at the center because there were no structures down. That's why we said we must have decentralization, we must have devolving of power. So all these things should come with the budget. What hasn't happened is effective decentralization. There's still too much centralization of the money. So the people in the districts and still down here, they look up there. So you go. I was in Palisa the other day. We want a minister from here. We want a minister from here. I was in, I do quite a bit of moving. They all want ministers. They don't know that actually the Constitution should put that money, which it is paying all these big parliaments, put it right up to level health center 3.
In fact, 2.
No, 2 is not a government.
Okay.
2 is a planning unit. It's a planning area. Like now, they've realized that is where but that is where we discussed way back in the 90s that planning should be at LC2. Implementation, LC3.
So these people try to have many ministers from their area.
Because they think they are going to bring things from the center. But what should happen? The center should mobilize resources, strategically plan for the whole country. But that doesn't mean that 3 doesn't have a strategic plan. Indeed, the strategic plans at parish level should be the collective strategic plans for 3, which should be the basis for the supervision and monitoring of the district. But the money, the lowest should go is 3, except for projects and plans, or projects and the programs that cut across. Otherwise, people think the money is there. They are lining up. You get big programs in state. It is the fault of the technocrats, like I've told you. They should come out and say, no, I'll tell you. When I was doing my research at Harvard, I used the census data of Uganda. And I talked I was working with the Uganda Bureau of Statistics. And they said, Your Excellency, see the difficulty of even coming up with data in real time, because you are cutting more sub-counties, more constituencies, more parishes, more villages, because everybody thinks it's those structures that generate money. That is the big challenge. You know, people are talking about mindset. And they are going to the villagers and young people. But they are not the ones in government. The mindset is of us people who framed the Constitution, our interpretation of the Constitution, and the way it has been implemented with the override that we must review every 10 years. Now, who reviews that? It's not the politicians. It's the technocrats. It's not the Constitutional Review Commission. That deals mainly with the legalities, the implications.
Is
but
it
the
the
real,
role of the technocrats?
it's the
To
technocrat.
demarcate constituencies?
No, please, take me out of politics. Because that's not the answer. No. If you know, it is the politicians asking for more so that they get less competition. When they see there is somebody, if I can now divide this district, that contender will go back to their home area and stand as a chairman. If now counties have become districts.
Where does that leave this country? And where are we headed?
Very big government. And in economics, because I was Minister of Industry, I did those, they taught us that if a company spends more than 5% of its GDP, it's poorly managed. Now we are going to go to almost 60% of what we collect in salaries, in cars, in allowances, in whatever. It's a big problem.
How can it be solved?
Now they are solving it by reducing the other parastatals. But the government is still big. Maybe those parastatals could even have more technical people to help.
Technically, how would you advise? We had a discussion about a story in newsroom, and someone was saying Uganda can have 2 MPs per district, a male and female, and that is enough.
That's enough.
You would support that?
Because, yes, I would support that.
To have a female and male MP per district?
Scrutinizing the budget for equitable distribution in accordance with the needs of the whole of Uganda. Why? When all those things were important, and they should be people who are seasoned. Then the young people can go and lead the chairman LC3, they have the energy, they can go and, you know, this is it. Because money will now go down to support the people who are the ones who generate jobs. Government is not a generator of jobs. And the president has been clear on this, but we are not helping him.
You, the who?
We, the Ugandans, who are able to talk, because you can be one person, mkazi oyo, she's arrogant, yepanka, because she went to Harvard. Yes, that's why you paid for me to go to Harvard. Okay. Yes, that's why you sent me to do strategic planning. Yes. So, President tumumenya. Too much. Because also you go to politics, you go campaigning, that I have all the solutions to poverty. In your backyard, there is nothing you are doing.
Many people are wondering why a teacher, and you mentioned your colleagues, the midwives, you're in the same field. You mentioned the midwives and the nurses. Other people are talking about the teachers. They compare what an MP takes home, an LC5 and all that. The other day, we interviewed an LC5 chairman.
You know, I don't go for that argument. Because everybody on contract gets paid more than everybody who is on a salary. Why? Without looking at the numbers, when you are on a salary by government, it's putting aside something for you, for your pension. Because usually when you stay in the public service for too long, you are not an entrepreneur. So somebody is thinking for you. When you leave, at least you can buy yourself soap, you can do ABCD. For me, I retired when I was 32 from the normal public service. Yes, 1987. I retired because my salary was 1,400 shillings when the dollar was 450.
1,400?
Yes, the dollar was 450. Lukumi mubina.
Per month?
Per month. That was what I was earning.
As a doctor?
Not even an intern or whatever. I had done my 5 years of medicine, 1 year of internship, did my 3 years as a specialist surgeon. That was my salary.
14000.
14000. So olimba.
You had to retire.
Yes. So if you think the salary is too small, you retire. But you will still be serving Ugandans. I continued teaching at Makerere. I even have students who didn't know I had retired. I continued operating in Mengo. I operated in the army hospital because we had few surgeons doing my own things. You are still serving Ugandans. Yes. Now, your question of the MPs. The MP.
With their numbers.
Now, if you have few numbers, pay them well. Let them do their monitoring role. Let them do research. Let them do everything and pay them. But elect them when they already have something to fall back on. Because you see the problem we have, people who go to that parliament, they have nothing. They think it is a career. They think it's everything. They sell even the little they have. They go. When they finish or they are not elected, they go back to zero. Ochiraba? Now, let the MP be paid well for that contract of 5 years. But let them be fewer with the gender balance.
Thank you so much.
But I also want us to have a forum where people who have excelled in the media, people who have excelled in medicine, in the medical area, people who have excelled in business, who have excelled, let there be at least maybe regionally another forum, or even by district, another forum where they come to provide some oversight between parliament and the executive. And I'm not saying that because I have left. That is something which the elders in this country told me, because I was the Minister of Culture, the religious leaders and all those, the religious leaders, the cultural leaders, they said, let's have a forum of people who have seen to be able to be a buffer, but it was rejected. And I hear that idea coming up now. But you cannot have a huge parliament, amorphous as it is, bitibwa.
How would you talk about the quality of the kind of people that go to parliament today? In fact, if you were to assess...
The quality of your parliament is a reflection of the quality of the people who have elected them.
They're going to have a speakership election, and there's some kind of tensions, and just like any election. What advice would you give to the voters? There are 3 candidates that I've heard of. Actually, there are 4. There's the Right Honorable Incumbent Speaker, Rebecca Kadaga, the Right Honorable Deputy Speaker, Jacob Olanya, the Honorable Speaker 10 years, Deputy Speaker 10 years, the Honorable Semjunganda, Opposition Chief Whip. Then I have a friend called the Honorable Chinyamatama. She has been in Parliament for 5 years and she's coming in for the 2nd term. How would you advise the 527 voters?
You know, constitutionally we are under a parliamentary, a multi-party system.
Yes.
Multi-party system. Before that, we had a movement system. Movement system was about individual merit.
Yes.
The multi-party system,
The party must back somebody.
the party must have an agenda. And it should be the party to identify its agenda in that parliament and identify who will lead the development of that agenda. So to me, that debate should be taking place within the parties. Whom will the parties promote? Beyond that, I cannot really say that so and so should be elected. So and so. Now,
we see 2 parties. The FDC has zeroed on Semjunganda. Then it's the NRM that has the Honorable Kadaga, Honorable Lanya.
well,
Nyamatama is an independent leaning NRM.
now, independence is also allowed in the Constitution. There is no leaning. I'm a very disciplined person when it comes to institution building.
Yes.
And they'll tell you, I'll tell you even if you are my brother or my husband, and you belong to another party, I will not promote you within matters that are multi-party. I listen to the party. This thing is no longer about individuals. It's about how we move as a country. So how are we organized as a country now? Through multi-party. So it's, what does the party say? What is the agenda for that party?
How do you see our parties? As we wind up, Doctor, we have so many political parties. Do you see them taking good care of the baby, multi-party dispensation in Uganda, helping him or her to grow well? How do you look at our parties? Do they really give you that hope?
You know, the old parties have grown old, but they still have the wisdom of the spirit of what multipartyism is about, because they practiced it. The beauty of the NRM is from those parties is where the veterans of NRM are. Now, the characters of those parties where we come from is also reflected in how we behave under NRM. So you have chaos within a party, and you make decisions based on whom you promote, because they will make you eat, because they've been helping you get a job, because because they are from my home area, because they are going to scratch my back. That's not what Uganda is about. That's not what Africa is all about.
What message do you have to the president, the new president?
I sincerely wish him good luck. I know he's a very hardworking man, and he loves Uganda. He loves the people of Uganda. He loves Africa. He's one of the few leaders who are true Pan-Africanists. And I wish him Godspeed in this work which he's doing for Africa, which he's doing for the people of Uganda. Do your part. Do your part.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Yes, with Dr. Kazibwe, I think we can have a discussion for 5 hours. My name is Michael Jordan Lukomwa. Thanks to Isaac Nyonyintono, the man on camera, and our senior pilot, Okelo Moses. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of the evening.